The diagnosis was meant to be a secret whispered in sterile corridors. A private war fought within the gilded cage. Instead, it became a data point, a line of code leaked from the digital fortress, turning a human tragedy into public spectacle. The anatomy of a violation begins here, not with a scalpel, but with a keyboard. Her body, a vessel for the future of a dynasty, was rendered public property. Every symptom, every fear, every whispered consultation downloaded, shared, consumed. This is the modern crown of thorns, woven from fiber optic cables. The loneliness in a palace is a special kind of cold. It's the silence in rooms too large to feel human. But the loneliness of having your deepest vulnerability strip-mined for clicks is a new, bottomless abyss. The firm, the ancient machinery of monarchy, proved powerless against the ghosts in the machine. Its walls of tradition were breached not by armies, but by an invisible intrusion. A digital coffin was being built around her, one headline at a time. The public wanted a fairy tale princess. They got one. But they forgot that fairy tales are full of curses and prisons. Hers was just made of glass and pixels, where everyone could peer inside. The scar from this would not be physical. It would be a permanent watermark on her existence, a reminder that even a princess is just content waiting to be monetized. Her suffering became a commodity. Pause. And the market was booming. The intimate inside story. The title itself is a contract, selling access to a soul. The ink is not yet dry on the medical reports, but the publishing machine is already churning, hungry for the next chapter of the narrative. This is the logical conclusion of a life lived under the lens. First, they capture your image. Then, they steal your data. Finally, they write your history while you are still living it. Every smile at a public engagement is now a piece of evidence. Every moment of perceived strain, a clue for the coming intimate story. The author, a seasoned royal commentator, is not a biographer. He is a forensic accountant of a public marriage, tallying the assets and liabilities of their union. The departure of Harry and Meghan was merely an appetizer. The death of the Queen, a dramatic turning point. The cancer diagnoses, that is the main course. A feast of manufactured intimacy. The promise of a modern monarchy rings hollow. It sounds like the rattle of chains, newly polished but just as heavy. Her return to duties in Pause 2026 will not be a recovery. It will be a performance. A new act in a play she never auditioned for, culminating in the release of a book that claims to know her better than she knows herself. This is the wreckage of an empire built on illusion. The illusion of privacy. The illusion of control. Perfection is non-negotiable. The moment her body betrayed that promise, the silence became a vacuum. A dark space filled with digital ghosts and algorithm-fueled conspiracies, each one a small sharp piece of glass pressed against the skin. Her body was no longer her own. It was a public square, a contested territory where mobs debated her existence. The institution's response was cold, precise, and utterly predictable. They did not offer comfort, they scheduled a comeback. The plan for 2026 is not a story of recovery. It is an inventory of assets and a damage control protocol, drafted with the sterile precision of a corporate merger. A carefully managed reintroduction of a valuable piece of the Crown's portfolio, polished and presented as new. The announcement of a new area of royal work is the masterstroke of this cold calculus. It is not a calling. It is a leash, gilded and presented as a gift. A pre-approved, low-risk, hermetically sealed lane to operate within, ensuring no deviation from the script. Her suffering was audited. Her grief was processed. Her future was plotted on a spreadsheet in a back office of the palace, its columns filled with engagement metrics and approval ratings. The pain was a temporary liability. The brand is eternal. This is the anatomy of a gilded cage. You are given the world, but your soul is held in escrow, collateral for a crown you may never even wear. She inherited more than jewels and titles. She inherited a ghost. The ghost of a previous Princess of Wales, whose own intimate story was strip-mined for public consumption until there was nothing left but wreckage and a blood-red stain on the Paris pavement. The parallels are not poetic. They are structural, baked into the concrete foundation of the institution. The firm learns from its mistakes, not by becoming more humane, but by becoming more efficient in its management of human tragedy. Catherine is not Diana 2.0. She is the perfected model, the result of decades of research and development engineered to withstand the very pressures that broke the original prototype. But the machine remains the same. A meat grinder for fairy tales, its gears lubricated with public adoration and private tears. The upcoming biography, the intimate inside story, is the next scheduled vivisection. The author, a seasoned royal correspondent, is not a biographer in the traditional sense. He is a forensic accountant, tasked with tallying up the cost of her life for the public record. The seismic revelations are not secrets. They are the predictable mechanical grinding of the gears. The disastrous Caribbean tour. The bitter family exile. The diagnosis that cracked the facade. Each event is a nail, hammered into the coffin of her privacy by hands that applaud her in public. Pause. The book will be published on February 26, 2026. A date that now hangs in the air like a guillotine's shadow. The most bitter part of this inheritance is not the scrutiny she endures, but the lesson she is forced to teach her own children by example. That to be royal is to have your life story written by strangers, to have your deepest wounds sold as entertainment, and to smile while it happens. The legacy is the scar, and the cycle is the only thing that's real. The diagnosis was a sentence. Remission, however, is not a pardon. It is a renegotiation of the terms of her confinement. The firm, the unblinking institution she married into, does not deal in forgiveness. It deals in assets and liabilities. Her illness was a liability. Her survival is now a managed asset. Pause. The announcement of a reduced pace is not a concession to her health. It is a new protocol, a tightening of the leash. They learn from the last Princess of Wales, the one who went rogue, the one whose ghost still walks the halls of Kensington, a cold draft of memory. This time, control is absolute. It is preemptive. The upcoming biography, the one promising seismic revelations, is not an exposé. It is an inoculation, a sanctioned narrative designed to occupy the space before an unsanctioned one can grow. It is the story of a perfect princess, tested by fate, emerging stronger. A fairy tale written in the cold ink of a public relations strategy. Her life is no longer a sequence of personal choices. It is a series of scheduled appearances, vetted statements, and carefully curated projects. The new area of royal work is a gilded distraction, a beautifully appointed room in a prison she cannot leave. Every smile is rehearsed. Every public wave is a performance for the shareholders of the monarchy. She is the crown's most valuable jewel, polished and displayed, but locked away in the vault each night. Her future is a sealed document, its contents decided in a boardroom she was never invited to enter. This is the anatomy of an erasure. The slow, methodical dismantling of a person replaced by an icon. The data leak was a brutal, public violation, but the true corrosion comes from the inside, from the relentless hum of the machine she serves, a machine that demands a sacrifice, her identity. The public owns her image, the palace owns her schedule, the biographers own her story. What then is left for her? She becomes a ghost in her own life, a collection of data points in the digital archives of the crown, a face on a commemorative plate. The promise of an intimate inside story is the cruelest joke of all. There is no inside left to tell. It has been hollowed out, excavated, and filled with the concrete of duty and expectation. This is the final stage of the process that began the day she accepted the ring. The transformation from woman to symbol. The upcoming book is not a biography. It is a post-mortem audit of a life that is still being lived. A final inventory of sins and successes tallied for public consumption. She is the echo of Diana, but perfected. A tragedy refined for a new generation, stripped of the messy rebellion. Her legacy will be one of flawless service, the bitter testament of a soul traded for a throne. The silence from the palace is the sound of a digital tomb being sealed. The year is 2026. It does not exist yet. For most, it is a void of possibility. For Catherine, it is a docket, a schedule of managed appearances and pre-approved narratives. Her life, once violated by a data leak, is now being prepared for a more orderly, commercial dissection. The title is William and Catherine, The Intimate Inside Story, a biography scheduled for a future that has already been written for her. This is not a story. It is an inventory of assets. The author, a royal editor, is not a historian. He is an undertaker for the living, polishing the coffin before the body is cold. The promise of seismic revelations is the marketing slogan for a controlled demolition. The palace insiders are not sources. They are narrative managers, ensuring the story serves the only client that matters: the institution. Her personal challenges, her illness, her very survival, they are no longer her own. They are chapters in a product, plot points in a strategy for a modern monarchy. A gilded cage with better lighting and a more robust social media presence. Her announced return to duties, at a reduced pace, is not a sign of recovery. It is a recalibration of the asset, a recognition that the porcelain doll, once cracked, must be handled with greater care to preserve its value. The announcement of a new area in her work is the final, quiet click of the lock. A new approved upon purpose to fill the space where a private self used to be. The ultimate tragedy is not the biography itself. It is the realization that the book contains no secrets she is not already forced to perform. The intimate inside story is that there is no inside left. Only a meticulously crafted exterior, owned and operated by the crown. The book is not a biography. It is a pause title deed,